The last chapter, 7.3, Analyzing a Budget. We're finally all the way through the course, and this is where we come up with analyzing a budget. I would like to go through example 2 on page 329 because, again, it's a perfect example. It goes through exactly what you need to know. And it goes through basically percentages of stuff that he should be spending on and how much money he actually makes. So Michael makes, basically what it says in the paragraph is Michael makes $420 per week. It says he rents an apartment in a popular location and uses a bike to transport and public transportation. And he's been tracking his money, which is a good thing to do. It's really, like my wife and I do this too. We go through our expenses and we see how much are we actually making and how much is our expenses. It's sometimes quite an eye-opener to see what you're spending stuff on when you actually don't think. It's like, I just go to Wendy's once in a while, but you actually spend, I don't know, you could spend $300 a month on Wendy's if you go once in a while and you're spending money for the family. So Michael makes $420 per week, and we want to see if this kind of, all these expenses fit into his guidelines. For example, his guideline for rent, if I look on there, it says that his rent or his housing should be 25 to 35%. Well, let's see what he's paying. So what I do is I say $230 divided by his 420, because I want to see what percentage is 230 of his monthly income. So I have 230 divided by 420. Okay, so 0.547 or 0.55. 0.55, which is 55%. Let's look at the guidelines for housing. Oh no, housing should be 25 to 35%. Right? Should be 25 to 35%. Well, he's way over. He's at like 55% there. Okay? Let's look at food. So food, he's spending $50. I'm going to divide that by the 420 to see what percent of his total income. So I have 50 divided by 420 is equal to about 12%. So 0.12, which is 12%. Let's see his, for food, it's supposed to be between 5 and 15%. Yeah, that one's all right. That one's okay. His savings is $20. So if I take 20 and divide by 420, 20 divided by 420 is equal to about 4.7, say 5%, 0.05, which is about 5%. Does it have something down there for savings? Yeah, it says 5 to 10%, so that's all right. It's very, very low. But you know what? He's spending too much on rent. So maybe if he cut his rent down, his rent's over half your income. That shouldn't be, it should be probably, I can't remember what the actual guidelines are, maybe a third or a quarter. I think maybe more like a quarter, which is what it says, right? Housing should be either 25%, which would be about a quarter. And you get the picture, right? So we go through and we figure out how much, what percentage of his income he's spending on these different items, right? And we look at the guidelines and we say, well, it should be 25 to 35%. Okay, well, let's figure out what 25 to 35%. Let's go with the top value, okay? The top number, 35%. So what if he was spending 35% of his income, right? Let's go through this. So what if? So his income is $420. We're going to figure out what 35%. So we have to multiply by 0.35. $420 times by 0.35 is actually equal to $147. $147, and that's per week because we're talking about his weekly income. Well, what about month? So what about per month? Because usually when you're paying rent, places sell for or rent for a month or monthly. So what we do, you cannot just multiply 147 times 4 because there's actually more than 4 weeks in a month, right? There's 4 and a bit usually. So what you want to do is you want to take 147 times by how many weeks there are in a year, which are 52, and then divide by how many months there would be, which is going to be 12. So I take 147, I times by 52 because there's 52 weeks. So per year he'd be spending about $7,644, And it's good to pay attention to these numbers as you go through. Okay, so that's what he's paying on rent per year, $7,644. Then what I do is I divide that by 12, and he's paying roughly $637 per month on rent, which is pretty cheap. I think most places in Kamloops rent for at least $800 a month. And that usually doesn't include your like utilities and stuff like that, right? So you get the idea. You figure out how much what percentage is by dividing by the total amount of his income. Figure what percentage it is. Check with his guidelines to see what he should be spending. And you can kind of change it. You can kind of say, well, he should be spending $147 per week, which is $637 per month. Okay, it goes on, and it says for circle graphs, it says construct a circle graph on page 331. It says construct a circle graph to basically show the expenses, right? Show all of his amount that Michael is doing here. This is back to section 2.4, which we did changing percents to degrees. So as long as you have the percentages there, which we do, the way we change them to degrees is basically by timesing the percent as a decimal by the number of degrees in an entire circle, which was 360. So I had 55 because it was 55%. Oops. 0.55 times 360 is going to be equal to 198, and that's my degrees. Okay, so that would be, I think that was his rent. Sorry, his rent was 55%, which is how much he's spending, way too much, and that's going to be 198 degrees of his circle. So when you're drawing your circle, and I did show you how to draw the circle as well in section 2.4. So just watch that video again of how to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be asking you to draw a circle or not. I'll see. Oh, just one more example. For 12%, which would be his food, what would that take up? How many degrees? Okay, well I take 0.12 times 360. So I have 0.12 times 360 degrees is 43.2. So 43 degrees is going to be spent on food. So again, use your protractor, tick off 43 degrees, and make sure that you can draw those. Again, just look at section 2.4. The video for section 2.4 shows exactly how to do this. I went through an example just like that. So that's basically all there is to this section, which is analyzing his budget, analyzing income, analyzing his expenses, checking to see what percentage he's spending on things, and looking at a circle graph and trying to convert that to a circle graph. Just trying to check out, okay, well, how does the color coding work and all that kind of stuff. And that's basically the last chapter. So it's kind of a fun chapter to do. Budgeting, which is, like I said, really important to do in your own lives. Even if you're high school students, or once you start to get a little job, or if you have spending money on gas, it's a good idea to go through and see what you're spending, and see what you don't spend money on. See what your parents spend money on that you might have to take over if you move out, kind of thing. And then, oh, that's what I would have to spend. So that's the last chapter, and I hope you guys do well with the test. And thanks.